Today we start with the front of the shirt, which is these two. We're going to complete the whole front, like doing the plackets, doing the pockets, and then we're going to attach the yoke, back, and front all together for today. So we'll see if I can go any farther than that, but that's basically the goal is for today, to put the bodice of the blouse or shirt together. So that starts with our plackets here. So as I said, make sure you're marking the wrong side of your fabric before you take your pattern away. Otherwise, you may get mixed up and your left goes to the right, right goes to the left, or it might come okay. So we don't know. So just to be sure, just mark the wrong side of your fabric, and the left and right side, they need to be identified. So let's put that aside and start with our pattern pieces here. That's the right side, and this is the left side. Right is the one with the bigger placket in here, and the left obviously is just a fold placket under for the button. So the right one is going to get the buttonhole. So there is fusing for the plackets. So you have these two fusing. One is says right side, one is says left side. The right side one is the one that is a little bit wider. The narrow one is the left side. So I'll show you where those fusing goes. I marked it on the pattern underneath, so you can see that that's where your notches are on the pattern, that you need to transfer those into your fabric, and that's where the fusing goes for the right side. So basically that's underneath, fuse goes in here. So I'm going to take it to the iron and do that. And for the left side, also the same thing. I marked where the fusing is going to go into. So make sure that you are using your fusing to put in there before we start folding and stitching it. Let's do that, and then at the same time, I want to prep my pocket as well. Who made the template for the pockets? Out of the okay, yeah. So I'm gonna probably borrow that template so I can just show you how to press your. Yes, please. Thank you. Pause. So as you realize, there is only one pocket, and the pocket goes on the left side where the drill hole pocket placement is being marked. So we're gonna have the pockets going in here. So we prep it, and then we're gonna sew it in after. But now I'm gonna move into the ironing table there, and if someone can follow me with that, we'll be okay. So this is basically for moving it up and down. Up.
Do you want me to place it somewhere, or do you want me to
just hold it where I'm at the table. I'm just gonna move these. These are my and let's go.
Even if I do shake it, it'll be fine.
Okay, let's start with the front plackets to press. So as I said, there is a left and there is a right. So this is my left side where there is a pocket mark. Okay, so all I have to do with this, put it down on the wrong side up, yeah, and use your smaller fusing, the narrower one that it says left front, and line it up in between the notches that you have. So you do have two notches in here, indicates your placket. So we line it in between these two notches. And we fuse it. So you have the same notch at the bottom. I'm just gonna grab my marker so I can just mark my fusing, my notches so you can see it. So I'm just gonna line this up in between and I give it a press. Of course, you can always go back to your fusing machine there and repress it and refuse it. Don't refuse it, just fuse it. Okay, so all you have to do with this, fold it over the fusing from the first notch. Just going to use the vacuum to hold it in place. And fold it back again on itself from the other notch that you have, the second notch. And we're gonna stitch it down when we get to the machine. So I'm gonna put that aside. That's my left side. Now the right side. So this is my right side here, and so obviously this is the right side up. And I'm gonna put it down, and I use the other fusing. So this is where it comes a little bit different from the other one we did. The other one was very straightforward, fold and fold, and that was it. With this one, I also fold and fold, but we're gonna be treating it differently. So you also have the same two notches. Of course, the spacings are different now. Can you all see on the table what I'm doing? You can't see it, and this camera doesn't work. If you want to come closer, unless you want to watch the video later, whenever the video is going to be ready. So that's going to get there as well. It's the same thing, except the spacings are different. So I'm going to fuse it down. So, as I said, same thing, I'm gonna fold it back the way I did the other one, except it's different size, different spacing. Fold again. Nothing is different from the other side so far, but when we start stitching, you will see the difference. What's going to be for this side and the other side, what the difference is. So this is that. When it comes to our pocket, the pocket needs to be, of course I do have two pockets. I don't need two pockets because I cut it double. Can just separate it. As I said, this fabric doesn't have the right and wrong side, and it's a very symmetrical piece. With this, if you flip it, either way is fine. Nothing is gonna change. But be careful with the fabrics that has a right and wrong side or is asymmetric. So what I need to do with this, I need to fold the top first. Where did the pen go? Oh, thank you. So there is a notch here, and there is a notch here. That's my finish line for my pocket, like this. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll fold this in half right to the notch first. And I fold it again, double fold. So you give you 1 inch finish fold. I'm not going to use the template yet until I sew the top edge first, and then I come back and press and use the template to press. Okay, so that's good. Let's go back to the machine.
Sewing machine, or you want it back here?
Yeah, let's have it here for now. Is it pause?
No.
So, with the front, I start with the left side. That is going to be a button side for the shirt. And all I have to do just change my thread to white to start with. I would be just edge stitch the inside edge of the fold placket, the inside edge stitch it down and secure it. With all this stripe here, it's very hard to see the edge. But that is the result. That one is done, except I still have to put the pocket on. Okay. For this side, I do need, because what we did here, we folded it on itself twice, like this, like the other side. And the raw edge in here is going to be sitting at the other fold. See, that's going to be fold at the edge here. You see that? So then I'll go and do a top stitching on the outside edge now. And this is a 1/4 of an inch top stitching. The other one was just a 1/16 or edge stitch on this edge, the inside edge to hold it down. But now with this one, I'm going to be going and do a 1/4 of an inch top stitching on the outside edge. So basically where the inside the shirt is, this part of the placket is the right side of the placket. I prefer the right side to be up when I do my top stitching. So that would be a 1/4 of an inch. So don't forget that 1/4 of an inch is the must. Has to be a 1/4. If you do edge stitching here, because the reason that I do the 1/4 of an inch in here, because I want to catch that raw edge inside that 1/4 of an inch, so that doesn't come out anymore. So that locks it in. So now what I have to do, the mistakes that happens here, because I have to do the second line of 1/4 of an inch in the placket. If you notice the shirt I showed you, there is 2 lines of stitching in the front. So I have to do that second line of stitching now. So one line is this one that I already done. The other one is going to be on the other edge of the placket, but you cannot stitch through the shirt. You have to open it up, flip it back like this, and do the others or the second line of stitching in here. So that placket, it will fold back out this way to give you the top placket here, like this. Okay? So that doesn't get sewn into the shirt. That's the mistake I see all the time happens when the student do the sample. They stitch it down into the shirt. So right now, by looking at the neckline here, you'll see how narrow the neckline is compared to the other side. See, this side is much wider. If I put it on, you'll see the difference, right? That's why this needs to get extended out for the neckline to match. Do not forget that. Okay, so that's gonna get pressed and is ready for the rest of the assembly. For now, before I start putting all the pieces together, I want to do my pockets. So for the pocket, all I have to do is just sew this edge, like the first placket that I did, fold and stitch the inside edge. I'll do the same thing to this one, to the pocket as well. And stitch it down like this. All right, so now I'm gonna go back to the pressing table to press that pocket and get it ready for my front. Okay, for pressing this, what I need to do, I need to use that template that you have. You should all have this template because there is a pattern piece for it and it says template. You have another one for the placket, sleeve placket. So you should have two pieces. One is the narrow for the sleeve placket and this is for the pocket. So I'm gonna use this, I'm gonna line it up right to the top edge of the pocket. Top edge of the pocket is the only edge that is finished at the moment. The rest of them is just gonna get folded over that octac template. So I'll put it this way. All I have to do you can use the vacuum to hold it in place. Fold the edge over and press it. Fold the under the bottom edge, press. And goes all the way around. I can just take the template out and start repressing. Oops. Repressing again to make sure that it is flat. So that should be good enough. So you can start stitching it into the front. Okay? So that is my pocket here. I'm gonna grab the left side front, and you realize that there is, can you see? These two dots or drill holes here indicate my pocket placement, the top corners of the pocket. So as I said, we talked about the drill holes before. You know that the pocket should be covering those two corners, those two drill holes that we have. So go high enough to cover them by 1/8 of an inch, and whatever that side covers, that's fine as long as you center it to that. So it should be giving you this. That's just going to get the edge stitched through, but we need to. Okay, I'm going to mark my stitch line here so you can see what I'm doing. So I start 1/4 of an inch in here, go up, go around the top corner, and go down this way. So I need to have a double stitching at the top. So this double stitching at the top, different shirt, different design, it varies. It could be a rectangle like this, or it could be a triangle like that. and go down from there. And you just do it again so you can see. So it goes up this way, out, along the top edge corner, and go down this way to give you a triangle. Either or is fine. So we're just gonna line the top. I start with the inside line, the 1/4 inch inside. Go back right to the top edge of the pocket. Start turning. So the top corner, and then I go down and so since you have stripes, you want to make sure that your pocket are lining up with your stripes. These stripes are kind of tiny enough so you can avoid matching the lines at the top. But mostly, if you look at here closely, let me just zoom it in so you see if you can see it. It doesn't zoom in any farther. So the stripes are a little bit different. So you're trying to match up the darker line with the lighter line, match up with the shirts. With this shirt, stripes are not as obvious, but a lot of shirts have the plaits, checks, or bigger stripes. You will clearly see that. So you have to match all the lines with the pockets. Go around. And go all the way up. Again, along the top edge by 1/4 inch. I did the rectangle here. I did the rectangle on this corner. I do the triangle on the other corner. You don't have to do both. You choose either or to do. I just want to show that there is a different way of finishing these corners. Even though this doesn't show as much, there are those tiny stripes and the white thread matching. You barely see the stitch lines, but a lot of fabric you will see it. So, but that's what it is as far as the pocket goes and the 2 plackets in the front. Any questions so far? You're all good? Let me pause here. As I said, we do have a back. We do have yokes. 1 back, 2 yoke, and basically the 2 fronts that we already prepped. I'm going to start with these 2 pieces, putting them together, and then I'm going to add my front to it. By looking at the pattern that you have here, you will see that there are 2 notches in here. This is the back part of the yoke. So there are 2 notches, so that indicates the pleat at the back of the shirt. And these are the 2 pleats at the back of the shirt that I have here, on both sides. So I just need to close those 2 the tucks or the pleats first for this to match. Otherwise, you will see that my yoke and my back seam, they don't match unless I close those darts or pleats. So let's do that. And yokes here, and I got the back. So what's gonna happen here, as I said, I need to close the pleats for this to match my back yoke. So this is, for me, inside is the right side of the fabric, even though that doesn't have a right and wrong side, but still, I take this as a right side. I'm gonna highlight my notches that I have here. So that's where the pleat's gonna be. And if I take this as a right side, my pleats is gonna get folded out towards the armhole. So I'm gonna grab this and fold it over the other one and put the tack over it. So basically I'm lining up my two notches together and I tack them down. You should have, I don't know, 1/2 inch seam or 3/8. All can double check if there is no notch. I'll do the same thing to the other pleats. So the inside notch folds over and line up with the outside notch. This way, your yoke should match. Like that. Okay? Now, with the yoke, we have two of them. So one has to go on top, one has to go at the bottom. So basically, we are sandwiching the back in between the two yoke that you have. So I'm just gonna grab, and I wanna have my right side to be facing my garment, my back. So that is the right side for me. Inside is always the right side for me. So I'm gonna flip this, put it here on top, and I'm gonna flip this and put it down here underneath. So I'm gonna have that three layers. One on top, one on at the bottom, and try to line them all up together and line up the edges together. I'm assuming we have 1/2 inch seam allowance here. Assumption?
A fair assumption.
Yeah. Okay, so make sure the 3 raw edges that we are lining up together, they're exactly lined up together. So if you want to go one at a time, line them up and line the other one on top. Sewing, there is a center notch in here. As you can see, center back has a notch, and the yoke also has a center back notch. And obviously the center of your back also is, for me, is the fold line that I have. For you, you should have a notch at the back as well. So those notches, they all need to be lining up. Again, line up one layer at a time, so you don't want anything to slip away. Underneath, make sure they're all lining up together. Okay, so that gives me these 3 layers with the back sandwiched in between. But you realize I showed you the top stitching on the outside of the shirt. There is a 1/4 of an inch top stitching at the bottom edge in here. But that 1/4 of an inch top stitching wasn't showing through the inside of a shirt here. So I'm gonna keep the inside. So this is the outside of the shirt for me. Oops, wrong button. So as I said, this is the right side of the shirt for me, and this is the top or outside yoke. So I want to just top stitch this first, and then I'm going to bring the other yoke up after. So I don't want to show the top stitching inside. So I flip it back so I can just have it in the right direction for top stitching, and I run a 1/4 of an inch top stitching in here. So that gives me this top stitching in here, and then I can just bring this up this way. The yoke should be still lining up together. The fact that you cut them at the same time, 2 layers, and you use the same seam allowance at the bottom to sew them together, so they still should be lining up and they be still the perfect match. So now, any question before I move on to the next level? You're all good? Everybody? So now I need to attach the front. For attaching the front, there's 2 ways of doing it. So I can attach, the front also needs to get sandwiched in between the layers as well, because you don't want to see the seam allowance sticking out inside the shirt as much as we could. Of course, for the yoke and shoulder, for sure we don't want to see this seam allowance sticking out. For the side seam and the armhole, a different story. We'll talk about that when the time comes. But for now, I'm going to be sewing this in a way that my seam ends up in between the layers. So for that, I'm going to grab my 2 fronts. I'll put that aside. I'll grab the 2 fronts that I have like this and like this. So I do have my wrong side showing up right now. Okay? And I'm going to grab the back and I place the wrong side of my shirt as well, the wrong side of the shirt facing down on the front. This way. So I line up the shoulders together. I lift the top yoke, which is my outside yoke, and I sew the front into the under yoke, the under layer. So that's also 1/2 inch seam at the shoulder. And the other one. Make sure you line them up together. 1/2 inch. Oops. That was on earlier, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, you still have the other ones. It's okay, there is hope. Okay, the corners, if you look at the corners, it's very hard to see. When you're lining up, because these are not the straight lines and it's not the square corners. The angles are different. Let me zoom in to see if I can just show you what I'm talking about. Go, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay. So when I line up my seams together at the shoulder, as I said, because they have a different angle, different corners, the way I line them up, you see that corner is sticking out in here. Can you see it? The corners are not lining up together. You always have to make sure that your stitch line, where the stitch line is, those are the points they need to line up together. Never mind the corners, because the corners on either side, if you look, they are not lining up. Because as I said, this is an angle diagonal line, and the angles on the corners are different as well. So if you line up the corners together and your stitch lines, they're not gonna line up together, and your seams are not gonna be matched. So you always have to make sure where the stitch line is gonna be at the 1/2 inch in here in our case. Those are the points that the edges need to line up. Is that clear enough, everybody? Okay. So now, to get this sandwich, I have two ways of doing it. Let's zoom out. I'll do both ways so you can see. One would be just hold it flat down like this, because now this front is the extended of the back. So the yoke. So I just cut it out from underneath. I made it flat. My seam allowance gets folded up into the yoke in here. I'll bring the yoke down, line it up. I know I do have 1/2 inch seam in here. I fold that 1/2 inch down and I line it up to my stitch line. Do you all see that, everybody? Obviously you're not seeing it. Line it up, and I'm just gonna make sure that my stitch line is covered with the 1/2 inch fold that I have, and I edge stitch it down. I keep that flat. My 1/2 inch fold goes over, and I stitch it down with edge stitching. So don't forget, that's the key, edge stitching. So when you do it this way, it has to be edge stitched, 1/16 of an inch. You can always go back and do the second stitch if you want, if you want a 1/4 inch top stitching as well. You could do that, but as long as you got that edge stitching there, you can always go back and do the 1/4 inch top stitching. I could do that like, so I end up with the double stitching there. If you don't want that second line, you don't have to do it. One edge stitching would be enough. But sometimes you just want to do a 1/4 inch top stitching and you don't want to have an edge stitching. And that edge cannot be loose and free, or cannot be lifted up. So it has to be nailed down. So for that reason, I have to stitch it from inside first. So that means I'm going to grab the yoke, and I'm going to grab the armhole. It depends which way it is, and I'm going to twist them back. I want to make sure that my front gets sandwiched in between. Okay? The same way that we were dealing with the facing last week. You remember all?
Yeah.
So kind of the same thing, but it's much easier than the last one, for sure. So all you have to do, just hold these two, flip them back, and put the right side together, right sides together, like that. Line them up. And use the side that you already have it stitched on. You already have that 1/2 inch stitching already there to hold the front into the inside yoke. Use that side up so you can see your stitch line, and go and stitch over that again to catch the second layer of the yoke into the seam. Again, the front is getting tucked in between. Make sure nothing else is getting tucked into the seam. Make it flat. Line up the edges and go over the same stitch line that you have already. So you realize that the front is in between the yoke right now. All you have to do, just pull it out. Okay, so this way you have an option of not doing any top stitching at all. or you can go ahead and do your 1/4 inch top stitching. The fact that I have a 1/4 inch top stitching here and I have double stitching here, I could match that side. I can just leave it with the 1/4 inch only. But don't forget that this edge here, you could leave it without top stitching. In this case, if it's stitched in from inside, you don't even have to do a top stitching if you don't want to. It depends on all the details and everything that you have in your design and what you're planning to do. So based on that, that gives you the option of do or not do it. Okay? Any questions? So basically at this point, I got the whole bodice of the garment together, the shirt together. And the next step would be that I'll try not to do it today, if I can help it.
Can we stitch the side seams together or leave that?
Side seam, it has to wait for the sleeve. The sleeve goes in because with this is not a setting sleeve. So we have to sew the sleeves in first before we close the side seam, because the side seam gets closed all the way through the sleeve and side seam. And for the sleeve, we have to wait for the placket to go in first before we do that. So there is a step we have to follow. And the only thing is that sleeve could be the next step, or the collar could be the next step, because these two are now two separate parts of the garment and they are not interfering with each other. So whatever order we take is fine. You're either going to go do the sleeve first and then do the collar after, or the collar and they come back and do the sleeve later. Okay? That was it for now. I'll see if you have extra time. I can always bring you back in here again today.